Hey, this is Marty from Blue Lightning TV. I'm going to show you how I created these retro pop art images based on Andy Warhol's famous silkscreen portraits of celebrities. Warhol combined unrelated garish colors with loosely drawn outlines and high contrast dotted halftone patterns of his subjects to compose his pop art portraits. We'll use a brush inside a set of thick heavy brushes that I provided. It does come with Photoshop, but if you can't find it, its link is in my video's description or project files. I also provided a font called Kevin Wild, which I think looks really good if you want to add text to your portrait. Open a photo you'd like to use for this project. I downloaded this one from Shutterstock. The first step is to separate the subject from its background. There are many ways to do this. However, if you're using the most recent version of Photoshop, which in this case is CC 2023, click the lock icon, which unlocks the layer, and open the Properties panel. If you don't see it, go to Window and Properties. Click Remove Background. Photoshop automatically isolates the subject and creates a layer mask next to it. We'll place white under it. To do this, we'll make a new layer below the subject. Control or Command-click the new layer icon to create a new layer. We'll fill it with white, but before we do, check your foreground and background colors. If they're not black and white respectively, press D on your keyboard. Since white is the background color, press Control or Command plus Delete. We'll make our subject into a smart object so we can modify it non-destructively. To do this, make the subject active and click the icon at the upper right. Click Convert to Smart Object. We'll make a copy of it by pressing Ctrl or Command J. Hide the copy and make the original active. Click the adjustment layer icon and click Levels. It's important to note that adjustment layers affect all the layers below them in the Layers panel. If you want an adjustment layer to be restricted to just the one layer below it, we need to make it into a clipping mask. The quickest way of doing this is to click the Clipping Mask icon. Another way is to go to Layer and create Clipping Mask. We'll make the Input Shadows level 37 and the Input White level 145. We'll convert this into a smart object by shift-clicking the subject and converting them into one smart object. We'll apply a halftone pattern to this, but before we do, we'll change the foreground color. So click the foreground color box and pick a color. I already know the color I want, so I'll type it into the hexadecimal field. 0011364. Then I'll click OK. Now go to Filter and Filter Gallery. Open the Sketch folder and click Halftone Pattern. Make the pattern size 1, the contrast 37, and the pattern type dot. Then click OK. Make the top subject visible and active, and go back to Filter and Filter Gallery. We'll close the Sketch folder and open Stylize. Click Glowing Edges. We'll make the edge width 1, the edge brightness 20, and the smoothness 15. Then click OK. Click the adjustment layer icon and click Levels and clip it to the glowing edges layer below it. We'll make the input shadows 37 and the input white 96. Then we'll convert it into a smart object by shift-clicking the glowing edges layer and converting them into one smart object. We'll change the blend mode to screen. At this point, we'll add the rest of the colors. Keep in mind, since the colors in Andy Warhol's portraits were extremely random, we can choose to apply any colors we want. There's no right or wrong. The first color we add will be for the background behind our subject. We'll make a new layer above the active layer by clicking the New Layer icon. Control-click or Command-click either of the two subjects to make a selection of its shape. We'll make an inverted layer mask next to the empty layer by Alt or Option clicking the layer mask icon. Make the empty layer active, and if your brush tool isn't already active, open it and open the brush picker. Open the Thick Heavy Brushes 2 set I provided. You can experiment with any of the brushes, but I recommend using the Rough Flat Bristle. At the top, rotate the arrow on this dial to approximately 45 degrees, which will angle our brush 45 degrees. Now, to enlarge or reduce the brush's size, make sure the caps lock key is off and press the right or left bracket key on your keyboard. Click the foreground color and pick a color for the background. Again, I already know the color I want, so I'll type it into the hexadecimal field. 870107. Then I'll click OK, or you can press Enter or Return. Loosely brush over the background, and it doesn't have to be completely accurate. You could leave some space in between some of the strokes. Warhol used paint over it. He used a variety of mediums, but this basically will give you that effect. If I clicked off the layer mask, you can see how it goes into our subject. We'll make a new layer below the active layer by again Control or Command clicking the New Layer icon. We'll place it into a folder by pressing Control or Command G. Let's name the folder Inside Colors. These colors will be confined to the inside shape of our subject because the black area of our background's layer mask is essentially restricting the colors to that shape. Make the empty layer active. The first color I'll add will be for the hair. You can pick any area of the subject you like. Click the foreground color and pick any color you like. Since I already know the color I want, I'll type it into the hexadecimal field, 68 and 4 zeros. Then I'll press Enter or Return. I'll brush over a little area of the hair. Now if I don't like the color or want to see how the blend modes affect it, I'll open the blend modes, and the quickest way of seeing how the blend modes affect the color is to click Normal and then press the down arrow on your keyboard to toggle through all the blend modes. And the last blend mode will be luminosity. Now I already know the blend mode I want, so I'll click Screen. And then I'll continue to brush over the hair. I'll press the left bracket key to reduce its size. And here we go. To make the next color, I'll click Control or Command on the New Layer icon to make a new layer below it. In this example, I will choose the collar. So again, I'll click the foreground color, and I already know the color I want, so I'll type it in, FD951B. I'll press Enter or Return, and make sure my caps lock key is off. I'll adjust its size and brush in the color. And again, you want to just have fun. That's the bottom line. And there's no right or wrong. It's really almost like paint by numbers. You don't have the number, but you do have the paint. And that's what Warhol did. He wasn't concerned about being right or wrong. That's why all his silkscreen portraits were so different. Now, just to let you know, if you do go over an area, like let's say you went over this, and you want to get rid of it, you could use the eraser tool, but I prefer using layer masks. So click the layer mask icon and make sure black is your foreground color. Now just brush over the areas you want to mask out. And you don't have to brush over it. You could overlap colors. Warhol did that as well. Continue to make layers for the shapes of your subject and just brush in colors, experiment with the blend modes, and bottom line, have fun. This is Marty from Blue Lightning TV. Thanks for watching.